And Lashana Tova Tiketevu. May you be blessed. And may this be a special Sabbath, a special Yom Tov, a special day of celebration, and yet a trembling before the presence of our King. We are called to do something today that is so stunning. We're to step out of the normal. Step out of the mundane, step out of our routine, and begin to address the Creator of the universe and His call upon our lives uniquely, in a way that we are unaccustomed to doing, in a way that will kind of break us out of the monotony, break us out of the routine, and get us on course. I call this, the whole idea of the Moedim, or the festivals, or the divine appointments of the Creator. I call this our assignment of alignment. We are called to come out of alignment with the world, out of entanglement with its mentalities, its oppressions, its depressions, its suppressions, its trauma, its drama, and begin to realign with the kingdom of heaven, realign with the King of heaven, realign with the mission of the heavenly host, realign with our purpose on earth, realign with the voice, the sound, the frequency, the message of the Creator. So that's what this day is all about. We do this several times a year, but this one in particular, the first day of the 7th month of the biblical calendar, of the calendar that's specified in Exodus 12, 1 through 2. That's what we're talking about. And in Leviticus 23, verses 23 through 25, the Holy One speaks. This is His voice, not Moshe's ideas about a good way to do things. This is the Creator of the universe speaking. And He gives us instructions. Basically, there are 7 instructions, 7 assignments of alignment that are specified in Leviticus 23, verses 23 through 25. There are also instructions given in Numbers chapter 29, verses 1 through 6, more pertaining to the time of the temple and the tabernacle that was past and that is to come. But nevertheless, that is also a passage. You will also find passages discussing this day in biblical history in Ezra chapter 3, verses 1 through 6, I believe it is. Also in 1 Kings 8, that whole story of the dedication of the temple took place at this very special Yom Tov time of the year, and leading on into the Feast of Tabernacles. And you see it in Psalm 81 is one of the ones that are mostly remembered. There are many others that deal with it. But this is the idea. There is this special thing today on the first day of the 7th month or moon cycle of the biblical year. And we are to step out of the normal, step out of the ordinary, step out of the mundane. It's a challenge because we get so in a rut. We get so and momentum builds up in a certain direction. And the Holy One says, but that is not who you are. The way the world goes, business as usual, is not what you were put on earth for. You have to live in the culture that deals with that. You have to live in an age in which that seems to be the important thing. Business as usual, politics as usual, economy as usual, philosophy and religion as usual. This is what you're basically used to, but I need to break you out of that, the Creator would say, from time to time. Well, this is one of those times. Are you ready to break free? Are you ready to disentangle? Are you ready to get some clarity? Are you ready to get some perspective? Because everything the Holy One does is not based upon this little detail, this little nitpicking thing. It's about the bigger picture. And the one thing about the mundane, the routine, the ordinary, the normal way of doing business, the as-usuals that I've referenced before, one thing about them is they don't give you the bigger perspective. They make you focus on the thing right in front of your eyes or right around you, as opposed to seeing the greater plan, the redemptive plan of the Creator of the universe, to redeem mankind as a species, bloodline by bloodline, household by household, family by family, and person by person, as many as will come, and also through that redemption to restore all of creation, this great ecosystem the Holy One has designed, to its original intended state of beauty and of fruitfulness and of shalom and of harmonious interaction. That's this grand plan. Things are going on, but we don't see it because we get trapped in the ordinary and the mundane. And so our Creator gives us these days, special days. He particularly gives us the first day of the 7th month of the year specified or directed in Exodus 12. There are many years. There's a year for this, there's a year for that. Starting whatever you choose as your beginning point can be a year. A year is merely, or a Shana in Hebrew, is you see merely a season of repetition, a cycle. Shana does not mean year in technical Hebrew. It means cycle. So when you return back and pass a landmark, whatever your landmark is, you have a year or you have a Shana. So people get upset about the idea that some people, the tradition has become that this is called a new year. Well, it is a new year because of the landmark we're choosing to deal with. It's not the new year of Exodus 12, but it is a new year in many ways, and it is the new year of the agricultural cycle, which is what the world lives off of. And since it's the new year for the agricultural cycle, when the world begins to replenish itself in preparation for the harvest season next year, then it is a new year. It is not the new year of Exodus 12, as I've said. So don't get hung up on these issues that divide. That's one of the critical factors of the Yom Tovim, of the special days of the Holy One is. Avoid that which divides. Hold fast to truth. Hold fast to Torah, but don't get caught up in the things that divide you, either from other people in the faith, in the covenant, or from the people of the world. We are to maintain the separations He has ordained for us to maintain, but we are not to become haughty. We are not to become arrogant. We are not to become rude. We are not to become outraged. We are to be vessels of deliverance, vessels of hope, vessels of life, following the example of Messiah, Yeshua, who showed that process. Now, let's talk a little bit about today, because I called Yom Teruah this day, as it's called Yom Teruah in the Bible, not Rosh Hashanah, but I don't mind people calling it Rosh Hashanah, because it is the beginning of a cycle of the year. But Yom Teruah, a day or appointed time for all men to draw near to and to give an accounting to our Creator. Let me repeat that so you understand the importance of this day. I started to say solemnity, but there's a joy that comes with this process, and we'll talk about why. The day appointed time by the Holy One for all men to draw near and to give an accounting to Him as our Creator. That is what this day is. You say, is that solemn or is that joyful? Well, it depends upon your relationship with the Creator of the universe and your sense of who He is and who you are in relation to Him. Yeshua said it this way in the book of Revelation and the revelation to Yohanan, the Revelator, as he's talking about sending a letter or a message to the Kehillah, the called out ones of Laodicea. He said, those whom I love, I discipline or I chasten. Now, should we be angry? Should we be offended? Should we be afraid that He would discipline or chasten us? Or that He would hold us accountable for the things that He has given and placed into our hands? Or would we consider that a part of our covenant relationship and rejoice in the fact that He loves us enough and considers us important enough in His grand plan to periodically review us and periodically tell us where we're going wrong and correct us, put us on a correction path? Yes, so that is why this is both a day of solemnity in some regards, but more for us, it's a day of great joy, a day of appointed time for all men to draw near and to give an accounting to our Creator. The special days of the Holy One calendar in general, I want to talk about that because I think there are so many misconceptions and judgments back and forth between people of faith, of different faiths and different levels of the faith, that I want to try to kind of at least dispel some of the myths or some of the minefield. The special days of the Holy One's calendar, which Yom Teruah today is one, are not they're not holidays in the Western sense. A holiday is a day in which you stay home from work or school, and you do whatever you want, or you catch up on your chores, or you just do nothing at all as you see fit. That's a holiday in the Western sense. Oh, the Yom Tovim, the special days of the Holy One. The day like Yom Teruah is not that. We are called to attention. We are called to awaken. We are called to a heightened sense of consciousness. We're called to action. We're called into understanding and seeing a bigger picture. This is not a day to do what we want or just sit back home or just catch up on chores. This is a special day. And we'll talk about why in a few moments. But it's not an ordinary holiday. The other thing that the Yomim Tovim of the Holy One, the special days, appointed calendar days of the Holy One, are not, is a religious sacrament. The Western world has so been caught up with religion for the last few generations, or maybe even millennia for that matter, especially since the days of Constantine, and what flowed out, both positive and negative, from that. And so what we have is this idea implanted in our brains from childhood that everything's about, in the faith world, is about a sacrament. A sacrament is a religious ceremony or a ritual, an activity regarded as imparting grace, divine grace or favor to maybe even providing a ticket to heaven via certain activities, things in which you participate. One of these examples from the Christian world is baptism, or maybe Eucharist, or maybe confirmation, or last rites, and it comes largely, I've mentioned these things largely out of the Catholic Church, because that's where even the Protestant version came from. The Catholic Church began to focus on sacraments. The Yomim Tovim, the days of the Holy One, are not sacraments. They have no impartation of divine grace. They do not key one way or another to you going to heaven. They don't, in themselves at least. We'll deal with maybe another day, we'll deal with how they might relate indirectly to that process. But that's not our issue today, and that's not the issue of the Yomim Tovim. That's not the days of the Holy One's calendar. Here, they're not about religious sacraments and you getting in position. So all the people who would say, we don't have to do that because we're already saved or going to heaven, that's irrelevant. It has nothing to do with the story. So let's move on. So since they're not holidays, as the world sees them, in which we do whatever we want to do or nothing at all, they're not religious sacraments upon which we depend for some special dispensation of divine grace. Neither are they ethnic or cultural pride days. We don't get to think ourselves superior to others or more important to others on this day or any other day because we do these things. We are called to do these things as servants unto the Holy One. That is all. And the servants unto the creation and to all men. So we cannot take any ethnic or cultural pride. Those movements are all based upon arrogance and hatred of other people and sense of superiority to other people. Ethnic pride movements of any variety and cultural movements of any variety are so dangerous because they are the stuff of the adversary. They are the stuff of the enmity. They are the stuff of the division, devising, and they're the stuff of incurring and inciting violence against others. Okay, so they are not days of cultural or ethnic pride. These Yomim Tovim of God. They are also not days to show off or impress one another, either with acts of piety in front of them or with a display of divisive knowledge, things that we've read about or things that we've studied or researched out that cause us to say, well, we're different, we're better than those people are because we do it this way. That is not what the Yomim Tovim are about. We have something else to do today. What are they about? The Yomim Tovim of the Holy One, the special days that he defines to be observed and considered on his calendar, are for covenantal purposes. At 4 levels. The idea is that he wants to enhance and expand and enlarge the covenant, and enlarge its impact in the world. The covenant that he made with Abraham, the covenant he made and expanded on at Sinai, the covenant he made with David, the covenant he made through Mashiach. These are all the same covenant, but they're expanded upon based upon the circumstances. And they have the same tenets and the same conditions and situations. Now, he wants to expand on the covenant. If anything we do on these Yom Tovim instead divides or instead causes us to be isolated from other people or causes us to be hated by other people or distrusted by other people or spreads any form of anger or offense into the world, we have failed in our essential purpose. These are about expanding, extending, and promoting the covenant on 4 levels. The first level is relational. The first level at which we're supposed to expand the covenant is relational, and particularly relational vis-a-vis us and the Holy One. We're supposed to build this. This is supposed to be a day. All these Yom Tovim are supposed to be days when we build, strengthen, expand relationship with the Creator of the universe. Wow. If we're not doing that, if instead we're doing something else, then we've missed the first point. The first point is expand, dig in, deepen your relationship, seek the Holy One, and He will be found by you. And this is the idea of the relational aspect, first relational aspect in particular. The idea is the Yom Tovim and our encounters with them and our participation in them, each of them, including today's, is designed to awaken and nurture and increase the fear of heaven in us. The healthy, the healing, the shalom-filled fear of heaven. And to build in the love of the Holy One with all our heart, with all our strength, with all our soul, with all our heart, soul, and strength. We're to build that love. This is supposed to advance and promote and expand the level at which we, and the level at which we love the Holy One with all our heart, our soul, and our strength. That is critical. And the way we do that is to enhance our hearing ability, our ability to shema, and our responsiveness of our body to shema. To shamar, to treasure, to cherish the holy things as opposed to cherishing the material things, the temporal things, the sensual things of this world. And to change our balance of prioritization and treasuring and cherishing from the natural, physical to the spiritual and eternal. Okay, so that's what increase our capacity to shema and our responsiveness of Shema. Increase our capacity to treasure, to cherish, to shamar in Hebrew, and therefore to cherish the things of heaven. And the third thing is to begin to change the way we build what we're building upon the earth. Redesign the lifestyle, the life that we are leaving, the legacy we are leaving, the atmosphere that we are leaving in the earth. Okay, so those are the relational aspects of things. As we become closer and closer to Him, and our fear of heaven increases, therefore then our love of the Holy One is designed to increase. And if it is not, if we're not getting this increase in love, if we're not increasing our Shema capacity, our Shamar capacity, our Asa capacity and performance, then we are not getting what we're supposed to get out of these Yom Tovim. Oh, that's just the first of the levels of covenantal purpose for the Yom Tovim, relational with the Holy One. Second one is familial. The people of the Holy One are supposed to have these wonderful Bayit Shalom filled homes, like the prophet Bilam, the prophet of the nation, said when he looked down upon the nation of Israel and camped on the plains of Moab. He said, how lovely are your tents, O Yaakov, your tabernacles, Israel. Well, familiar. We're supposed to have lovely tents. So it means that what goes on in our family is supposed to be different than what goes on in the dysfunctional families of the world. We are not to have that dysfunction and support it and foster it and consider it normal. We are instead to build Bayit Shalom, the peace in the home, the shalom that fills the household. Now that means that these Yom Tovim, these special days, including Yom Teruah today, are given for us to engage in joint enterprises, to put aside whatever things we would do independently of one another as families, as husbands, as wives, as children, as parents, as grandparents. We put aside those things and focus instead on joint activities, joint enterprises, particularly co-laboring with one another as grandparents and grandchildren, as parents and children, as grandparents and siblings and other siblings, the elder, the younger, and all members of the family extended, and gathering together and cooperating together. This builds unity in the family, and it builds bayit shalom. Without this, the family just degenerates into its own individual, unique desires. The mama wants this, daddy wants that. The oldest child wants this, youngest child wants that. And we all go our separate ways. And this Yom Tovim are designed to call us back together and focus on the bigger picture and the more important communal goals. So this idea of family shalom, joint enterprise, activity, co-laboring with all the different levels of the family. The third level, after we are we increasing our family unity by virtue of these Yom Tovim? If we're not, we're doing it wrong, and we need to consider how we can adjust, how we can change our approach to these special days, including Yom Teruah, and in such a way that we can build family unity. Third thing, the third level, after relation with the Holy One, relationship and familial relationship with our family members, the third thing is communal activities. We are designed, if we're dividing among our communities based on how we do the festivals, how we do the Moedim, if we're dividing and are judging them, this group versus that group, do you understand how we have totally missed the point? We have made negative, we've made nugatory, we've made irrelevant the instruction of the Holy One. And instead we're just promoting our own agendas. So, the communal unity. Esprit de corps being built, a positive unity, a positive sense that not just unity for the sake of unity, but a unity that builds together, do things together that inspire one another, to bring an inspiration level to the process as opposed to a judgment process. So this is the third level at which we are designed to enhance covenant purposes on these Yom Tovim. How are we doing on building communal esprit de corps and positive forms of unity and inspiration? You see a lot about this in Shaul's writings too. After he said therefore, he got all the doctrinal stuff he wanted to say. He began to tell us how we need to build unity. Speak to one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, and prefer one another. Don't try not to cause conflict or argue over this, that, and the other detail. Okay, you see where we're going here. The fourth level, there's four. Relational is particularly involving a relationship with the Holy One. Relational with regard to family. Relational with regard to the community. And finally, the representational aspect of the covenantal purpose of these Yom Tovim. We are to, by the virtue of our experiencing and participating in these Yom Tovim, like Yom Teruah today, we are supposed to become better representatives of the Holy One, better witnesses on His behalf. We are to be more better exhibitors, better vessels of Kedusha, holiness, infused love, shalom, emunah, faithfulness, grace and mercy and kindness and forgiveness, and also wisdom. These are the things we're supposed to be doing. Now, before you go too deep into Yom Teruah today, and before you do that, make sure you understand, anything else you do besides these four things should be aligned with those four things. Now, each divine appointment on the Holy One's calendar sets the tone for the next. So you need to understand that this is not standing by itself. Yom Teruah is not standing by itself, nor is any of the others. It's preparing us for the next one. The next divine appointment is going to be Yom Kippur, or actually Yom HaKippurim in the plural superlative form. And that will be, some people call it the Day of Atonement. This is on the calendar for 10 days from now, basically Sunday, September 24th at sundown through Monday, September 25th at sundown. That also has its purpose, but again, we'll have those four covenantal aspects to it. That's the real purpose. Okay, if you think that Yom Teruah is a big deal, just wait till you get to Yom Kippur. We'll talk about that then. Okay, back to the main point. Our assignment is alignment. We have work to do. No, not melachah, not the things that we do for a living, not the things that we do to impress other people or to make other people's living for them. We have work to do in the kingdom. We have the assignment of alignment. Are you ready to align yourself and let the Holy One draw you into alignment with Him and His plan and His grand plan for redemption and restoration? Now, Yom Teruah, let's talk specifically about this day. It's a beautiful day that has basically 10 aspects, or 10 plays within a play, 10 acts within a play. They're spelled out, as I mentioned, in Leviticus 23 and through 25, and Numbers 29, 1 through 6, and other places. But they're general instructions given to us by the Holy One as to what to do. And they are intentionally, I believe, vague. They leave room for interpretation. They leave room for application. They are eternal. They are true. They are real. But they don't tell you exactly what to do. They don't give you a step-by-step guide. You have to work that out with the Holy One. That's why the relational aspect of getting closer to the Holy One and maintaining your focus on family, maintaining your focus on the community, and the fact of your witness and how valuable your witness is and your testimony and your lifestyle example is to the world are going to be important factors. Well, what are the 10 acts? What are the 10 separate elements of the instructions? The first is the celebration of the new moon cycle. The world, the Western world in particular, doesn't even understand or know what the new moon is. Scientists and astrologers picture the new moon as the day of extreme blackness, where the conjunction basically where you can't see anything. But that hasn't really, because the moon is the lesser light. It is the Ma'or Katan. It is the light which begins to be a bridegroom unto the greater light. So we need to understand that if it's going to be a celebration, an observance of the new moon cycle, we're going to have to see a sliver. And so the idea is we'll see this first sliver. Now this happens to be the first sliver that we see, the first evidence, a glimpse of this light, enlightening and renewal of light after the midpoint of the year. We started our year, according to Exodus 12, we started it back in the springtime on one, it's called Nisan or Aviv. That's not really the name we should probably call it, but that we have to call it something. So we'll call it the name that's been given to it historically, Nisan or Aviv. So that month started, and that was 6 months ago. As a matter of fact, 6 months and a few hours ago. Well, you know that a year is basically 12 months, 12 moon cycles. And if we're at the 6-month point, we're at the midpoint. And this is the first day after the midpoint. And this is the first moon light, the first light of the second witness. And it is the second, the lesser light is the witness, the faithful witness of the Holy One's overseeing of creation and the ecosystem. That the moon is there. That we see the moon and we see it shining its light, it's a promise, the first fruits of the light to come. Well, I'm going to go too deep into that. This is the first issue. Talk about it with your family. Talk about it. Think about it. The new moon cycle is where we start. If it weren't for that, this wouldn't be Yom Teruah. This is the only time of the year that we have a Yom Tov that is also a new moon. The new moon has its own special days every month, but this is a very special new moon. Well, that's element number one. How are you interpreting and how are you incorporating this special new moon into your observance? How is it drawing you closer to the Holy One? How is it causing you to think more about Him and be more conscious of Him and love Him more? How is it causing you to do things with your family? How are you incorporating the idea of the moon? Do you go out with your family and look for the new moon? Do you look for the sliver? Do you talk about it? Do you do the other things of the new moon? Do you blow the shofar, as it says in the Psalms? What do you do? And do you make a special time to say, this is a new moon cycle? Well, this is a community activity that builds family life, builds community life, and helps us to keep focused on who we are so that we're better representatives to and witnesses to the nations. That's Act 1. First part of Yom Teruah is a celebration of the new moon cycle, the observance of the lesser light, of the faithful witness, and all that entails. The second thing, the second act of this particular Yom Teruah is that it is called a Shabbaton. Not just a Shabbat. Today is the Sabbath anyway. We have a double overlapping. We have the seventh-day Sabbath, which has its own special holiness and majesty and beauty. We have something special now. This is a Shabbaton. This is a Shabbaton. A Shabbaton, you've added the noon sound, the end sound at the end of the word. You've added a suffix, the Vav Nun Sofit. And that makes it a collective thing that also points it to a model, points it to a long-term ideal, points it to an ultimate superlative form of the Sabbath. We're connecting with eternal Sabbath here. It's not just the normal Sabbath that does it. This is a one step beyond the normal Sabbath. Now, what it usually means is the first time the Shabbaton is used is that in Exodus 16 it talks about the manna and the Sabbath in relation to the manna. And it says now, with regard to what you do when you go out to get the manna, you find the double portion on the day before. So realizing that the Holy One has provided what you need, and then therefore you do not even do work of preparation on the Sabbath itself. Shabbaton means that you have prepared the day before. Well, this idea of how are you incorporating the Sabbath into your life? How important is the Sabbath vis-a-vis the other 6 days? How important is the Sabbath and how much of it you relate just to a day of rest, or a day maybe to go to a fellowship or an assembly, or a day maybe to study the Torah, which are all good things. How much do you relate to, as opposed to a picture, a foretaste of the great era of Sabbath that is to come in the world to come? Which one do you see? What do you see? And how is this building your family relationships and your unity? Building your community involvement and co-laboring with other people in the community and breaking down walls and barriers between you. How is it doing that? Well, that's the issues we'll deal with. How is the Sabbath becoming part of your testimony and your witness? Not a witness of superiority or arrogance or racial pride or ethnicity pride or cultural pride. No. An evidence of peace flowing throughout your life, and beauty and fullness and a sense of well-being that comes from the Sabbath. Okay, the holiness infusion that you get with the Sabbath. So the first is celebration of the new moon cycle, the first element of Yom Teruah. The second is Shabbaton, learning to really expand on the idea of Sabbath, both present in every seventh day, but beyond that, special Sabbath, picturing Sabbath to come. And third, zikaron. The term is used, zikaron, remembrance or commemoration, zikaron in Hebrew. And the idea here is, it says a remembrance. This day is to be a remembrance, it says in English, of Teruah. Well, yeah, it is a remembrance of Teruah. But the idea of remembrance means you have to actually have a thought process where you shut down your thought process as it is normally, and the things that you allow to be your inputs, your stimuli, what you listen to, what you watch, change that and begin to focus instead on remembering, calling to the forefront of your mind and processing again, savoring the things he tells you to remember. We'll talk about what that is. That's many things, but Teruah. We're to zakar, and this is zikaron, same word. We're to zakar, the holiness of the Sabbath. How do you do that? Well, that's in general on the seventh day. Zikaron, and the special Sabbath of Teruah, we're supposed to remember it. And there are certain things we can remember. Remember, it's Ezra 3, 1 through 6. Remember 1 Kings 8 and the dedication of the temple by Solomon and the filling of the temple on this day by the Shekinah, the presence of the Holy One. Oh, well, there are things to remember. But it's a day of remembrance, and that means we have to selectively choose what we will think about and what we will focus on. Okay, that's the third thing. Celebration of New Moon Cycle is one. Engaging with the Shabbaton is two. Engaging with Zikaron, rethinking, rewiring our brain to think on things the Holy One wants us to think about, the things that inspire, the things that edify, and there's what we're doing on Zikaron. Now the fourth thing is, it's a Zikaron of what? Of Teruah. Teruah is an interesting word. The t at the beginning is a prefix that's talking about you. It's very personal to us. So this is something that's very personal to us. And the ruah, t, is very personal to us. Ruah is breath or breathing, spirit, wind. The your to us, very private, personal to us. Ruah. Oh, think about Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, and what happened with Adam and the breathing of the Holy One of the Neshama, the Nishmat Hayim, into Adam's lungs. That's one. Think of all the times, the ways in which the breath of the creator of the universe has touched you, has invaded your world, invaded your life, in ways that awakened you and stirred the neshama within you. That's what we do. This is the day of Teruah. Yes, Teruah can also mean noise, joyful noise, clamorous noise, sound of shofar, but it has nothing directly to do with shofar. The shofar is found, the reference is found not in the Torah, but in the Psalms. We'll get to that maybe if we have time. The fourth thing was then Teruah, learning to focus on Teruah, the breath, receiving personally again, revitalizing the breath of the creator of the universe that flows in our lungs and in our spirit. The fifth thing, the fifth act of the Yom Teruah is that it is to be a Mikra Kodesh. I think English Bibles often call it something strange, a solemn assembly. The words don't mean solemn, they don't mean assembly. So it's just something that apparently would fit into the religious connotation of the King James era and the Episcopal Church and the way it approached and how it wanted you to think. But that's not what it says. Mikra Kodesh means a rehearsal or a proclamation of holiness. A rehearsal of holiness. We're supposed to rehearse be holy as I'm holy, the things that he told us in Vayikra, book of Leviticus. Rehearse being in the holy places, in the courts of the king. Rehearse going into the tabernacle, but more and pass through the portal of the tabernacle into the very presence of the king in his throne room. Among his courtiers, among the four living creatures and the 24 elders and the saints of all the ages and the cherubim and the seraphim, and being in these holy places, rehearse holiness and practice being holy. Practice being full of this energy of Kedusha, that is the energy that causes things to happen and powers the things that happen and directs the things that happen in the king's chambers, in the courts of the king. Causes four living creatures to cry out, holy, holy, holy. Causes the cherubim and the seraphim to fly around and give glory to the Holy One. Causes the 24 elders to cast down their crowns as they fall on their faces. Causes the saints and the angels to cry out, worthy, worthy is he who is worthy to take the scrolls. Now this is the idea of rehearsing holiness. Mikra Kodesh. This is one of our responsibilities, one of our things to alignment protocols. And the sixth thing is we are to do no normal, regular work. We are to put out of our minds the idea of doing things either for remuneration or to get people's approval. If we didn't get money for something, but we got somebody's approval for it, or we got somebody's esteem for it, then it's melacha. And this is something we're not to do. We're supposed to focus instead on the things I mentioned earlier, the covenant, 4 levels of covenant enhancement, our relationship with the Holy One, our relationship with our family, our relationship with the community, and our witness, the faithfulness of our witness. Okay, so that's the sixth thing. The seventh element, the seventh act of this particular moed, this particular special appointment, is karavtim. This is the one we focus on perhaps most, although they're all valuable. The seventh is always an important one. The seventh one is the karavtim. That means to draw near. We don't just think about the Holy One. We approach him. And if we have not made some distance, we have not bridged the gap between the creator of the universe and us. Now, he's waiting to do that. He wants to do that, and he's inviting us to do that. But we must take a step or two. And this idea of taking a step, karavtim, approach, draw very near, as an intimate, as a friend. And yes, there may be some discipline that comes with this. There probably will. We need that discipline to be able to be a better servant of His and a better minister to the world. So, karabtim, and not being afraid. Be not afraid. Be very reverent, but be not afraid. Be very humble, but be not afraid. Now, that's the seventh karabtim. And the eighth is called Ishe la Adonai. In English, I think you read a fire offering to the Holy One. I just don't know what to say about the King James English. Isha, do you know what that means in Hebrew? And unto the Holy One? An Isha unto the Holy One? I'm not going to even talk. I'm going to let you research that out for yourself and think about it. Now, Isha or Isha, which one would it be? Well, we have some grammatical marks. We have some Masoretic text that makes it Isha, but that was not in the original text. Anyway, I'll leave the number 8 to you for your interpretation. As I said, He doesn't give you directions that are completely, irrevocably this way. They have to be this way and only this way. Instead, He gives you a bigger picture. Can you draw closer to what Ishe or Isha Ladonai might mean in real terms? And then the ninth of the 10 acts or elements of this Yom Teruah celebration is the presentation of our will, the olah. In English it's called burnt offering. The idea here is that we completely surrender our will to His will, our thoughts to His thoughts, our emotions to His passions and His plan, our limited perspective to His greater vision. And then the 10th is I call it Echad Hatat Lekafar, the choosing of one to cover the sins. We will see how this all works out later, but that's a part of our aspects of Yom Teruah. Now, we're called to draw near to Karav, the Holy One. We're called to build our relationship with Him, to let Him build His relationship with us, to focus on Him, not upon what separates us from other people. So the dimensions, there are dimensions to this, what I call God-man connectivity factor. God wants to connect with man. He's a spirit. We are largely operating in the flesh. We have a neshama, but that neshama is sort of encased or encapsulated or trapped, imprisoned, as it were, within the boundaries of flesh and pseudo-intellectual thinking and opinions and ideas and ideologies and religious thoughts and opinion, all that stuff. And now somewhere the idea is for the spirit, the neshama in us, to connect with the Spirit in the Holy One and then draw our flesh and our intellect into alignment, coming into alignment. So what are the dimensions of God-man connectivity for this day and other Yom Tovim? The first one is time. The Holy One. The Holy One does not live by time. He is an eternal being. Time is a convention that He allows to us. It's like on Genesis 1:2, when the earth was without form and void, and darkness covered the face of the deep. And the Holy One stepped into this physical, tangible realm, and He stirred the waters, so to speak. He calls Himself to a lion over the waters. His face, His manifestation, touched. He actually became or touched the corporeal. And He calls the alignment of heaven and earth to take place in such a way that then He could speak into the natural being and cause things. And He said, "Let there be light," or light be into the world, and everything began to change. And this is the idea. He sets aside certain times to actually stir the waters, like the angel at the pool of Bethesda in Jerusalem, as you read about in the stories of Yeshua, the healing stories of Yeshua. The angel stirred the waters. Well, this is how the heaven touches the earth in certain things we call time, certain intervals of time. And those intervals of time become special oases whenever there is a stirring of the waters. This is one of those, all the Yomim Tovim of the Holy One times, when he begins to reach out of eternity and step into what we on earth know as the convention of time. The second thing, the second level of which we connect with God, these intervals of time, but also he actually chooses certain space, place, geography that we know. He's not bound by those. He's omnipresent, he is spiritual, he's in all areas. But we are confined to space, to place, to geography. He knows that. So to interact with us, to have a dimension of interaction with us, he must somehow touch this geography, the space that we're in place, or connect us in some way with a place that he has done that with. That's why he says, blessed are those who pray for the peace of Jerusalem. We connect by virtue of our prayers to this place where he has set his name and his holiness. His character, his attributes are there. His release, there's a portal there. And so we pray for the peace, the shalom of Jerusalem, and that connects us with a place. Let's think about the idea with Moshe. Whenever Moshe, the Holy One didn't have to appear in a burning bush. He actually had to invade the space continuum to come into physical thing and begin to cause this natural phenomenon of the bush to burn. And in so doing it, this place he said, now take off your sandals, Moshe, for you, the place you are standing is holy ground. We need to connect with Jerusalem. We need to connect with Sinai. We need to connect with the places where there is holiness. And that holiness then become part of us because we are connected to those places. And then the third level or dimension of God-man connectivity, the ways in which he connects with us, are through what's called the nephesh, the soul, and many people call it the mind, the human mind, the will, and emotion. The Creator has designed humanity in such a way that we have something more than the animals do. We have a mind, we have a will, we have emotions. These are heightened levels from what any animal has. But these are not the neshama. The neshama is the will of the Holy One only, and it is the ways and it is the passions of the Holy One, not our fleshly emotions. So nephesh is a place of interface. It is the designed interface between the software of the kingdom and the hardware of our bodies and our physical existence down here, of our mortal bodies. The nephesh is the place where the connection can take place. Or we can reject the connection, but this is where the interface is designed to take place, the nephesh. So that means that if we're going to connect with the Holy One, there needs to be something happening in our minds. That's why he has put on Yom Teruah, he specifically said, make it a zikaron, where we actually focus, we redirect our thoughts. The same thing with regard to our will. What was the last one? It was the making of the olah, the surrender of our wills. And then the third place is the emotions. Okay, so the idea is that human beings idolize emotions. They make the idols gods out of their emotions. They feel so righteous in their anger, or their indignation, or their depression, or their sadness, or their fears. They feel so important whenever they're doing these things. They're caught up in the drama and the power of those emotions. The Holy One says, no, the emotions are a warning light to you. They are not your God. They are not me. Your emotions are a warning to get back to me, to come back to a place of shalom, to come back to balance, to come back out of your overreactions, which is what your emotions really turn out to be when they go out of control, and come back in self-control, come back into self-control. That's the idea. That's why the interconnection on the days of Yom Tovim, we should have a sense of balance come back into our life, a sense of shalom come back into our life, a sense of letting go of emotions. If we're offended, if we're angry, let it go. Well, how do we do that? Well, you have to think mind, have your mind shifting as focus, have to shift your will away from what you want, vengeance or justification or vindication or whatever it is you think you may want, or money or gifts or provision or importance, whatever it is you think you want. You have to change that to what the Holy One wills it. And your emotions then begin to calm down and you come back into a state of balance. Well, this is the idea of the interconnection, the dimension of God-man connectivity we call the nephesh. The fourth of the 5 levels of divine connectivity, of God-man connectivity, is the devarim, his words. The words, you notice that if you're in a holy place, in a holy sense, you're connecting with the divine in some way, suddenly words that you normally would use just don't feel in place. The prophet Yeshayahu, or Isaiah, he put it this way in his vision, when he's describing his vision. He said, woe unto me, I'm a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean. We talk dirty. We talk filth. We talk nonsense. We talk folly. The stuff that comes out of our mouth on a normal day-by-day basis is not the Devarim. Is not the words the Holy One would put in our mouths. It's not words that honor Him. It's not words like that. It's just junk. It's just trash. It's just filth. Mostly comes out of our mouth. Profanity is one thing. That's just the ultimate lowest level. But any level of a complaint or accusation or judgmentalism or criticism beyond the idea of building edification that should go with that. You see how Devarim are important. We connect through changing the way we talk, the vocabulary and the tone we use to communicate with Him and with regard to the world. If that's not happening, we're not connecting with Him. If we're still spouting whatever we were spouting, talking like ordinary human beings, talking in the locker room or in the office or in the boardroom, we're just not getting the divine connectivity. The fifth, the final, is what I call companionship synergism. Whenever we're connecting with the Holy One, then we synergize each other. We edify each other. We inspire each other. We cause each other to be better than we were before separately. This is what Yeshua talked to about, is the wherever two or more of you are gathered. This is synergism, this companionship synergism. If we are connected to Him, then we connect with others. There is a release of power. There's a contagion of holiness that takes place in this realm. All right. We have just a few more minutes. Let's talk then about today, Yom Teruah. With all the different covenant goals in mind, the 4 levels, with all the different ways of divine connectivity being employed, here's the king. Here's the thing. You have been summoned to a divine appointment with the Creator of the universe. Your case has been brought before the greatest of all review boards for consideration. The question is not whether you will eventually go to heaven or will you do it now or later. The question has nothing to do with heaven as opposed to as your eternal resting place. The question is being asked, presented before the review board. The question that's on the table as you make your divine appearance when your name is called to come before the Creator of the universe on this day according to the summons. The question is this: will you be a worthwhile, honorable representative of the Holy One in the trying, difficult days to come? Will you be of the Spirit? Will you be divinely connected? Will you be mindful? Will you be full of Yirat Adonai, the fear of the Holy One? Will you be full of the love, the Ahavat Adonai, the love of the Holy One with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength? Will you be a good example and a model and a uniter and a redeemer in your family? Will you be a leader, an elder, a spokesman of wisdom in your community? Or will you be a divider, complainer? Will you be a good witness, a faithful, trustworthy, credible witness whose life aligns with His words? In biblical parlance, the appointment for which we have been called to appear today before the Creator is called Yom Teruah. Westerners call it the Feast of Trumpets. Many Jewish people call it Rosh Hashanah or Yom HaZikaron. But here's the situation. Masterpiece theater, the divine passion play of the Creator of the universe for the greater plan of redemption and restoration. He has a drama He wants us to act out. This is the immaculate opera of divine love, redemption, restoration. This is Act 7, the act of Yom Teruah. The greatest story ever told is ongoing. This is part of the ultimate passion play. All these Moedim, all these festivals, all these special days of the Creator that He's ordained. Like I say, they're not holidays. They're not days of ethnic pride. They're not days of like that. They're not that. They are an ultimate passion play. If you put them all together and make the grand scheme, it reveals the majesty, the goodness of the Creator and His plan of redemption for mankind. Lays it out piece by piece, act by act. And that as a whole, it presents the testimony that He wants presented. It's a multi-act drama, you see. One that the Creator has written for His people to act out. To do it in sequence. To do it at each act at its own appointed time, the time He stirs the waters and makes it where people can hear it over the course of the cycle of 12 months, 12 moons. It is to reveal to the nations and to all their generations the elements of the Holy One's grand redemptive plan for the redemption of mankind and for the restoration of creation and its ecosystem to the intended Edenic state of beauty and fruitfulness and shalom. The Holy One says, these are my feast in English, but in Hebrew he said moedim. They're mine. They are mine. They are part of me. They are an essence of who I am, not an essence of some ethnic culture of the Jewish people. They are my feast, he says. And the Hebrew word he uses, moedim, is a plural form of moed, which means appointed time or appointment. It means a visit, a conversation, a connection, a ya'ad, a specific time, date, or place with an agenda for an important meeting. So that is our sequence today as we begin to focus on Yom Teruah and our call before the King. Welcome to the throne room. Welcome to Revelation chapter 4. And I heard a voice. I heard a sound as if it were a great shofar saying, come up here and I will show you things which must come to pass. And you will see thrones, and one throne in the center. And around the throne will be a sea of glass. And around that throne, around the sea of glass, you will see as a rainbow, as it were, sparkling as emeralds. And you will see the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders who sit as the board of review for your life. Beloved, have a good day. See you on the other side.